Hey, Ed, how are ya?
Ed can't hear it or can't talk right, but I'm gonna allow him to talk because I know Ed. Hey, Ed, how are you? I asked him to unmute there.
Thank you.
There.
Hi, Renee.
It looks like you're having a lot of fun at STN, Ed. I'm loving your tweets, so thank you so much for sharing those, and congratulations to you.
Well, just finishing is an accomplishment. It was a weird group of kids from freshmen to seniors, so they learned a lot. They got their story done, and they had fun. So you're up at Bob Dobson this morning or this afternoon. So I'm afraid we don't have a full room, unfortunately.
Not too much.
We'll get a couple of them, Ed.
So the disembodied voice that isn't Renee, I'm not sure who you are.
Charles DeWalt, board member. You know me.
Charles, I do. I didn't see a name up there, or from what I'm looking at anyway. So.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to mute you back there, Ed, because we're getting ready to start here in a little bit, and I'm going to wait about 2:01. And like I was saying, Renee, it is recording too, so. We'll wait about one more minute to allow anybody else to come in that may be coming in, and hopefully we will get some more there.
Hey, Parker. Hey, Linnea. Hey, Auburn. Thanks for joining me. I think we can get started now.
Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the STN Pro session. We're glad that you're here today. A couple rules. In the lower right-hand corner, you'll note, or lower part of your screen on Zoom, we have the raise hand feature like you're probably used to, but there's also a question and answer button. We're going to use that to ask the professor questions at the end, and I will unmute you and allow you to talk. We have 35 minutes for the session, and then approximately 10 minutes to answer any questions and stuff. My name is Charles DeWalt, an STN board member. Some of you recognize my voice. I won't tell you where at. You'll have to figure that out on your own. But it is my pleasure to present to you Professor Hobbs and her presentation today on propaganda. It's not what you think.
Thanks so much, Charles. Hi, I'm Renee Hobbs. I'm really happy to be here. I just wrote a new book. It's called Mind Over Media, Propaganda Education for a Digital Age. I wrote this book because I was really curious why almost all the college students that I teach seem to think that propaganda is something that only happened in the 20th century, and it only happened in Nazi Germany. Whoa, if that's what you think, then I think you're going to be in for a treat today, because propaganda is alive and well and all around us today. It can be found in news and journalism. It can be found in government and politics. It can be found in advertising, marketing, and public relations. It can be found in entertainment, education, and of course, activism. So today what I'd like to do is take you on a little exploration of some of the resources that I've created to help kids learn about contemporary, not historic propaganda, contemporary propaganda. And we'll have a chance to think about how you can apply your understanding of contemporary propaganda to the video productions that you create. Because if you do that, they'll be better. Many people don't understand that public service announcements, for example, are a classic form of propaganda. Sometimes when kids are making public service announcements, they're not using all the tools available that propagandists throughout the centuries have taught us. So let me share my screen with you. I'm taking you to my website. I invite you to go check out the Media Education Lab website. I'll put the link in the chat room. You can access all, I'm so proud of my new book, you can see, and my other new book. So I'm a professor of communication studies at the University of Rhode Island. I run the Media Education Lab. We try to advance the quality of media literacy education through scholarship and community service. We do lots of events online webinars on all kinds of topics, mostly targeting teachers and educators and media professionals. But the one that I want to share with you, it says it happened in the past because I guess today is today, teaching propaganda in media production class. One thing that I did to try to help students and teachers explore contemporary propaganda was a whole bunch of digital resources. And today I only have time to show you one of the resources that I created, but I'm super proud of it. It's called Mind Over Media, a crowdsourced gallery. You can access more than 3,000 examples of contemporary propaganda, then rate and comment on them. Let's take a look at this cool crowdsourced website. Oh, here we go. Let me log out. So let's learn a little bit about this website.
Today, propaganda is inescapable. In a world saturated with media messages, propaganda can be found in information, news, advertising, or entertainment. And sometimes it's easily recognizable. Other times, propaganda can be subtle. Are you more powerful than propaganda? The Media Education Lab introduces Mind Over Media, an online platform for understanding 21st century propaganda. At this website, you can view and discuss examples of propaganda in print, video, or digital forms. You can exchange opinions about the potential benefits and harms of media messages. Log into Mind Over Media by going to www.mindovermedia.tv. Take a look at the gallery and check out how people identify and evaluate propaganda that is a part of their everyday lives. Then find an example of the propaganda that you see, watch, and read. Upload a picture, a link to a video, or make a screenshot of a website that you think may be a form of propaganda. Explain your reasoning. Other viewers can comment on what you share.
But in order for it to work, you have to pay attention.
Are you more powerful than propaganda? Mind Over Media.
Got it. So this website is a place where you can learn how to recognize propaganda when you see it, rate examples, interpret their messages, and assess their impact, browse and sort examples uploaded to this site, and then upload and share examples from your own community. But really, and then there's a place for teachers to learn about propaganda. There's more information about teaching about propaganda. But here's the first thing I want to do is figure out this definition. That word propaganda often is used as a smear word. You know what I mean by a smear word, right? It's one of those words that stops you dead in your tracks. You just hear that word and you go, ooh. In fact, it's probably possible that a lot of kids heard that word, propaganda, and said, I don't want to go to that session, right? Ugh. It's a smear word. But actually, Neil Postman once wrote that of all the words we use to talk about talk, the word propaganda is the most mischievous. That's because the word has had a variety of definitions. Now, what I'd like to do is take a look at these 8 definitions of propaganda. And I'd like to sort of think about which of these phrases jumps out at you. Which of these phrases resonates with your experience of contemporary propaganda. So I'd like you to use the chat room right now. And as I read aloud these definitions, you type in some of the key phrases, the phrases that jump out at you or that make sense in terms of the world you inhabit, where TikTok and Instagram and influencers create a whole world of propaganda in a variety of different forms. Let's take a look at that first definition. Propaganda is one means by which large numbers of people are induced to act together. Propaganda is a form of information that panders to our insecurities and anxieties. Propaganda is the deliberate, systematic attempt to shape perceptions, manipulate cognitions, and direct behavior to achieve a response that furthers the desired intent of the propagandist. Propaganda is intentionally designed communication that invites us to respond emotionally, immediately, or in an either or manner. I'm happy to see some key words coming up there in the chat room. When we finish this list, I'm going to invite you to choose your favorite definition or parts of your favorite definition. So thank you for noticing. What are the key words and phrases that resonate with you when you think of the word propaganda? Check out this one. This is a long one. Propaganda is a form of purposeful persuasion that attempts to influence the emotions, attitudes, opinions, and actions of specified target audiences for ideological, political, or commercial purposes through the controlled transmission of one-sided messages which may or may not be factual via mass and direct media channels. Whoa, there's a lot of different ideas going on in that interesting definition. How about this one? Propaganda is indifferent to truth and truthfulness, knowledge and understanding. It's indifferent to truth and truthfulness, knowledge and understanding. It's a form of strategic communication that uses any means to accomplish its ends. How about this one? Propaganda is a form of communication aimed toward influencing the attitude of a population toward some cause or position. Toward some cause or position. How about this one? Propaganda appears in a variety of forms. It is strategic and intentional as it aims to influence attitudes, opinions, and behaviors. Propaganda can be beneficial or harmful. It may use truth, half-truth, or lies. To be successful, propaganda taps into our deepest values, fears, hopes, and dreams. Whoa. Okay, now it's your turn. Raise your hand and tell me, which one of these definitions do you like best and why? Let me hear from two of you, please. Who wants to go first? Which of these definitions or which parts of these definitions do you like best and why? Don't be shy.
Okay, do you want me to unmute
Yeah.
them too? Okay.
Unmute them.
All
This
right.
small group.
Please state your name and what school you are, and we'll start with Auburn.
Hi, my name is Auburn Tompkinson, and I'm from Carlsbad High School. And I like the one that talked about how it was a one-sided message to persuade mass amounts of people.
Nice. Why do you like that phrase, Auburn?
I feel like it portrayed what a lot of people think propaganda is and how it's like convincing people to do something. And it doesn't necessarily speak the truth, but it speaks like what its message is and what it wants people to do.
Nice. Love your reasoning. Thanks so much for sharing that. That's a really powerful phrase. One-sided messages, which may or may not be factual, via mass and direct media channels. Thanks so much for sharing. Who's next? What's your favorite part? What's your favorite, most interesting? What goes to the top of your understanding of propaganda? Which of these phrases do you like best?
This is
Ed?
in Massachusetts. And I agree with our previous speaker. 5 came to mind from myself as well. And I liked it from the point of view that, well, all of these are wonderful definitions, but this one jumped out at me.
Which one?
Number 5 as well. And the whole idea of the control transmission, where the cracker is really designing it to influence and manipulate in some way for good or evil. Hopefully good, but unfortunately, some people choose to use it for other purposes.
Absolutely. Now, one thing that's really obvious when you look at these, they're presented in time order. Back in the 1940s, propaganda was thought as a way in which large numbers of people are induced or encouraged to act together. That's kind of positive. But you can see that by the 2000s, propaganda has got a much different, more negative perspective, right? So it turns out that definitions of propaganda change in response to changes in society and changes in technology. And you can learn more about propaganda and how to recognize it, and especially this idea of how to analyze it. Maybe it surprised you to see one of those definitions that said propaganda can be beneficial or harmful, right? Like all forms of communication, propaganda may be more or less effective. Propaganda is not a magic bullet, right? That affects everyone the same way. But it is important to look for where propaganda can be found in journalism, in advertising, in government, in education, in entertainment, and in advocacy. Now, a lot of times people ask me, Renee, how can I spot propaganda? And I always say, well, there are 4 core practices that you can spot, help you spot propaganda. Propaganda activates strong emotions that bypass people's critical thinking. Propaganda also attacks opponents. And we've seen a lot of that in the last 4 or 8 years, haven't we? And propaganda responds to audience needs and values. In fact, in order for propaganda to be effective, it has to tap into the deepest hopes, fears, and dreams of its audiences. And propaganda simplifies information, right? So propaganda uses imagery or repetition. It simplifies information and ideas. So you can read more about how to recognize propaganda here. But of course, it's really, really fun to use the rate and the browse functions. When you use the rate function, it gives you a piece of propaganda from the gallery. There's over 3,500 examples of propaganda uploaded by people from all around the world. So let's just pull the trigger. Whoa! Oh, I didn't know that was what we were going to get. Let me look at this a little bit more carefully. It says up at the top, surfrider.org.br. So I know it's from Brazil. The sea level is increasing. We're all in danger. Now, I'm invited to rate this example from beneficial to harmful. Somebody uploaded this, and if I look at it, it's the person who uploaded it said, they called it global warming grenade. And they said it's an advertisement about global warming from Surfrider Foundation. The water level is rising, and there's an image of a grenade showing how the water is getting closer to the top, and then the bomb would go off. They say the technique uses to activate emotion, tugging at your emotions. Bombs and explosions are associated with fear. Is this beneficial or harmful? Well, I do think it's important to help people understand that rising sea levels is definitely going to cause danger. I'll say it's somewhat beneficial. Whoa. But now, when I make my judgment, my value judgment, I see that not everybody who's been to this website interprets this message the same way that I do. It definitely looks like I'm in the majority. You see, 40% said they thought it was very beneficial. 17% voted like me, somewhat beneficial. But look, 21 plus 8, almost 30% of the people who have been to this website, they thought this propaganda was harmful. I just described to you why I think it's beneficial, because I think it reflects something that's happening in our world that we should be concerned about. But can you use your imagination or think about why people might have thought that this form of propaganda could be harmful? Raise your hand if you think you can give a reason why some people would find this propaganda to be harmful.
Okay, Ed, I'll unmute you.
Well, I think some people might react to the vehicle of the can grenade and see it as a violent thing and be squeamish from that perspective, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, the environmental crisis is not the same as a grenade. For God's sakes, I mean, that's kind of obvious. It might be offensive to use a grenade as a metaphor, right? So some people are going to go, it's misleading to make it seem like it's going to go off immediately. Wow. So when you use the rate button, you're presented with a random piece of propaganda that you're invited to rate. And of course, some of these examples have interpretations and comments. And if you want, you can share your ideas on these. But this is a fascinating way to see some of the many different kinds of propaganda. Take a look at this. Wait a minute, Burger King? Advertising? Is advertising a form of propaganda? Well, some people think so. Now, this one's especially interesting, isn't it? Now you can pay rent and eat, right? Whoa, so that is targeting a very, very specific group of people about maybe people who have food insecurity, right? So this is a fascinating tool, but you can also, oh, look at this one, the United Muslims of America. The time has come to understand one simple thing. We, the American Muslims, are as Americans, support Hillary, support American Muslims. Oh, look. This is one of the social media posts distributed by the Russian-financed Internet Research Agency, which attempted to influence the 2016 election. It activates emotion. It's designed to make white people angry or feel betrayed by a politician. At first, I was going to say this was good, right? I was ready at first to say this was beneficial. But once I learned a little bit more about it, I realized it's really, really harmful. I wonder how other people thought, but notice, not everyone interpreted this message the same way. And that's a really big idea to reflect on. We might all see the same example of propaganda, but not interpret it the same way. Now, one of the most interesting places to explore is the Browse Gallery. The Browse Gallery lets you search on any topic that you might be interested in. Like, you see my list here, Denmark. This is what I've searched on recently. Denmark, terrorism, PSA, political, racism, and theater. I've searched on those words and I've found examples on all of those topics. Right? So why don't we just take a look at one of these, shall we? Wear a mask. Don't be that guy. Okay, so does that message fit our definitions of propaganda? Why or why not? Who wants to answer that question? Is it fair to call that an example of propaganda based on our definitions? I see somebody's hand is raised.
Yeah, Ed again, hold on mute.
Thank you. Sure, it is. It's manipulating what you want people to do, and I would like to think it's a positive direction to have people wear masks, but there might be some anti-maskers who disagree.
Yeah, I might say it's beneficial. Oh, I'm the only one who has voted. Well, so woo!
More an influencer, Renee.
Oh, that's wonderful. So the person who uploaded it said, this is a simple wear a mask campaign that shows what not to do, attack opponents. It's a very gentle attack ad. It's a very gentle attack ad. Let's take a look at it. Let's take a look at it again. So sometimes people think that when propaganda attacks opponents, it always has to be loud and noisy, and there has to be adjectives and shouting. But no, this also creates an us versus them mentality, right? Don't be that guy. So it's also using a propaganda technique, but in a very gentle sort of way. Now, one piece of propaganda that I really wanted to ask your opinion about, one that's just been making me crazy. Part of the reason why I love this website is I get to see propaganda from all over the world in entertainment, right? You can see the Saturday Night Live and the Trevor Noah clips, but also in meme culture. So this is a meme, and I would love to hear, students, I would love to hear your interpretation of this meme. So, propaganda, beneficial or harmful? Oh, I already rated it. And you can see that I was somebody who thought this propaganda was very harmful. I'll share with you my reasoning, and then we'll hear about maybe other folks who might not see it as harmful. This propaganda seems to be created by an artist, really, an artist who took the people who participated in the insurrection, the Capitol invasion, the siege on the Capitol, the assault on democracy, or whatever you're going to call it, and it made them into Lego characters, right? Here's the guy with the selfie stick. Here's the guy who took the podium, right? Here's some of the Capitol Police, right? Here's a Make America Great guy, and here's the guy with the crazy costume. And it kind of makes it to me, it makes me think that it depicts them in kind of ways like they're like they're part of history, or they're part of history in an important way, right? Sort of like the Lego set has the Battle of the Alamo, right? It's kind of like that. It sort of makes it into an important historic event, and maybe even trivializes it. Maybe that's why I don't like it. But you know what? If you think it's beneficial, it's possible that you think this is a form of social commentary, right? That this is actually making a statement about the events of January 6th, right? As a historic event, or as an event that needs to be understood by people of all ages, including children ages 6 and up, right? Because it was impossible to ignore, and children ages 6 and up are familiar with it, just like everybody else. So I'm really curious to see what comments will emerge here. The person who uploaded it said, "This is very troubling meme. It shows that the January 6th siege on the Capitol is a child's game. It seems to make the event seem nothing more than harmless fun." Yes, that's a great point. If this person says it transforms a terrible historic event into a trivial thing, that's one interpretation. But propaganda is kind of complicated because it can be interpreted in many, many different ways. And of course, as you explore this website, you'll find propaganda in science, you'll find propaganda in politics, you'll find propaganda that activates the heart, and propaganda that addresses our deepest values. You know, it's ironic when you look at the international propaganda, you can often see that propaganda offers a set of values that that differ from place to place. This one I wanted to share with you. This is a really, oh, hold on, let me see if I can link that. Is that, click on that? Yeah, there we go. Oh, this video is age restricted. Okay, so we have to watch it on YouTube. I think you guys are old enough to understand. Maybe that seems a little scary. I don't know how old the people are in this session, so I'll wait on that. I'll show you the critique. If you want, you can go to the website yourself. It's a beer ad, you guys. I mean, it's not like you haven't seen a beer ad, right? It's a beer ad from Denmark, right? But I'll show you the critique of the beer ad, which is so interesting as a form of propaganda itself.
They say that we Danes are the happiest nation in the world, and we are, at least on Fridays and Saturdays, when we get completely wasted. The rest of the days, our youth are depressed and waiting to get drunk again. But why do we young Danes get so drunk? Is it just because it's fun? Or is it because we don't know how to have social interactions if we're not completely hammered? Maybe it's because the Danish way of drinking is basically competition to see who can get the most drunk. Perhaps it's because our friends tell us we're cool when we brag about how blackout drunk we were last night, how much money we wasted, and how we fell on our bikes when we tried to get back home. Or is the answer simply that drinking is way too big a part of Danish culture and one of the biggest problems in our society? Probably.
Whoa. Now, you know, that is a public service announcement about drinking. It's definitely different than the forms of public service announcements about drinking that we see in the United States, right? It's definitely referring to some cultural practices that are unique to Danish society. And so for us to understand propaganda, we have to understand it in context, right? We have to understand it in relation to our society and what's happening in our society at any point in time. So like, check this one out, you guys. This is a tweet It says, it's from First Mate Prance. The cops keeping MAGA protesters from the inner chambers of the Capitol. And it's a Cheeto, right? Has democracy become complacent, says the author. I actually think this is kind of a beneficial form of propaganda because it's using humor to raise a real issue. Again, oh, I'm so happy to be the first one to rate it. Maybe you'll go back and rate it. The person who uploaded it said, this meme suggests that the Capitol Police were inadequate to control the insurrection. Yeah, that's what it's saying. And it's attacking opponents because it's almost making fun of the police, right? And I could see, now that I see that, I feel like I thought it was this way, but now that I read that, I think, oh, it's maybe a little bit more harmful than I first thought. Because at first I thought it was kind of beneficial because it was funny, but now I've started to think about it a little bit more and I'm like, well, yeah, it actually, those guys were doing the best they could, those people who were at the Capitol defending, and making their efforts seem like a Cheeto, it kind of hurts, right? So I gain a little bit of empathy. It turns out that when you critically analyze propaganda, it gives you this opportunity to think about it from different points of view, right? Not just your own point of view, but other people's points of view, and to see how propaganda can be understood differently by different people. And that actually creates an opportunity to have some, what I call multi-perspectival thinking. And to be an effective communicator, you definitely want to think about how your message might be understood by different people, how it could be misunderstood by people, how people could see your work as beneficial or harmful. So now, there are 4 techniques that you can use when you're making a public service announcement, or really almost any form of communication. Building upon your knowledge of propaganda, activate strong emotion, simplify ideas, respond to audiences' hopes, fears, and dreams, and attack opponents. All of those strategies are tried and true practices of propaganda that effective communicators have used for millennia. Now, that's all I have time for to talk about propaganda, but we do have a little bit of time for comments and questions. What comments and questions do you have? How has your understanding of propaganda changed in the last 30 minutes?
If you'd just like to raise your hand, I'll go ahead and unmute you when you. Nobody?
How has
Somebody's
your
gonna have to.
understanding of propaganda
Oh, Ed's got
changed?
a hand up again. Okay.
Good show, Ed.
There you go, Ed.
There we go. I think it's more nuanced. I used to think of it more in black and white, and the good guys, the bad guys, but the whole idea of people interpreting it from their own perspective is so true. That depending on your life experiences, something like that grenade that had a positive intent. Well, if you came from an area of war and those grenades killed your loved ones or a friend, that was certainly going to give you a certain lens when you look at it, than someone who's passionate about the rising the climate change and whatnot. So that the whole thing of where your perspective is and what can you see from your viewpoint, because if you saw the whole thing, you wouldn't have the same opinion, as you so eloquently showed as you went down and changed your mind as you look at things.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I only really know what I think, and when I'm in a conversation with other people who are thinking different things. It turns out that I really benefit in my own thinking by hearing other people's interpretations. One of the cool things that you can do on this website, it's just so fascinating, is you can search the browse bar for the ones that were you can see how propaganda has changed just since I built this website, which was in about 2014, right? And so these are some old examples of propaganda from basically a long time ago, right? And one of the things that's really cool is that some of these examples of propaganda have a lot of comments on them because they've been on the website for a long time. So for instance, this one is really scary, but think about it. This is propaganda that can be found on the back of a truck, right? It says, everything I need to know about Islam, I learned on 9/11, right? And you're invited to rate this from beneficial to harmful. Of course, I think this is terribly harmful, but not everybody does. And you can see how polarized, right? It's either love it or hate it. There's nobody in the middle. When you look at the comment thread, it's really fascinating. This guy says this is racist because it shows 88 Heil Hitler and depicts against Black people. 52% of people rated this harmful because of its attempt to convince people that all Islamic people are terrorists. So this person's pointing out something I didn't even know. What does this mean? It shows 88? Oh, so here the person who uploaded it said there's some white supremacy code happening here. So you can see that there's a really lively comment thread here, including one from Harry Potter, you guys. So needless to say, it's a really fun site to explore. I hope that when you see propaganda in your real world or on your website, you'll take a picture or you'll upload an example, because anyone can upload an example of propaganda to the website. That's in a way an important part of our learning, as we realize that propaganda changes in response to changing technology. If you search the website, you'll even see there's some TikTok propaganda on this website. So propaganda doesn't stand still. It's dynamic and changing because it's a way to try to influence people. Activists have to use propaganda. Greta Thunberg, the Swedish environmental activist who's, what is she, 15 now or 16? She's a propagandist, but in a really great way. So I hope I've disrupted your idea that propaganda is not just a smear word, but it's for the practice of trying to influence attitudes and behaviors by using the power of communication and information to make a difference in the world. And that power can be used for good. It can be used for evil. It's up to us to spot and recognize propaganda wherever we find it. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Hobbs, to being here today. Thank you, everybody that's participated in this. Ed, thank you for speaking out a lot there. Appreciate that. And we're glad that everyone enjoyed this. Please check out some of our other pro sessions. STN has lots of them each day here. And there's a lot of good events out there for you to watch. So we hope you watch that. And then this is also recorded, so it'll go up and you can tell your friends about it and other teachers to go back and watch it later. Thank you again for everybody being here. And we will end our session now so that the next pro session can start. Thanks again, everybody. And thank you, Professor Hobbs.
Bye now.
Bye.